In a bid to get a few more games into my already full arcade, as shown in a previous video, I bought and installed an Arcade1Up Asteroids Partycade. While newer Partycades feature a lighted marquee, the Asteroids unit I purchased did not, and it's noticeably dark in the game room at night. Fortunately, the Arcade Game Factory offers lighted marquee kits to give these older Partycades a facelift. The kit includes a transparent marquee mounted in a lightweight frame and features the same artwork found on the original game. It also includes a strip of LEDs as well as all of the wiring required to install it into the cabinet. When finished, the marquee lights up when the game's power switch is turned on, so it works just like it was factory installed. The first step of the project is to disassemble the cabinet and remove the original marquee. I started with the back panel first. This requires removing not only the visible screws, but also the two screws holding the black feet to the back of the cabinet. With the back removed, I next pulled all of the screws from one side panel. There are a lot of them, so be careful to get them all. I also removed the screws from the two white brackets that hold the cabinet side to the screen. I left the brackets attached to the side panel to make it easy to put the cabinet back together later. Next, I removed the top panel from the cabinet and the original unlighted marquee. You will need to keep the bottom spacer board from the original marquee. It's held in place with 3 screws. Attach it to the bottom of the new marquee frame using the same screws. This is easy as the holes are already drilled in the frame and they line up perfectly. The new marquee attaches to the cabinet with 2 replacement screws included in the kit. Insert the screw in the remaining side panel, then line up the marquee on the corresponding hole drilled in its frame. Drive the screw home with a screwdriver and be sure not to over-tighten it, as the screw could easily strip out the lightweight plastic material. While I was working on the marquee area, I turned my attention to the white bulkhead board that separates the marquee's box from the rest of the game cabinet. This bulkhead needs to have a hole drilled in it so the power cord from the LED strip can pass through it. You can simply drill it in place, but that tends to leave a lot of mess and cleanup. Instead, I removed the screws holding the white marquee backer and pulled it from the cabinet. I could then remove the bulkhead and then drill the 5/8" hole at one end using a Forstner bit in my drill at my workbench. I then reinstalled the bulkhead in the cabinet. The LED strip has a piece of double-sided mounting tape to hold it in place. After slipping the cable through the hole in the bulkhead, I used the tape to hold the LED panel to the top of the screen support frame. While the tape's okay, it doesn't hold well enough on the rough edge of the MDF screen support, so I mounted it more securely using 2 screws instead. At this point, I turned my attention to the wiring connections. From my previous Partycade video, I'd showed how I'd mounted the power supply inside the cabinet. I needed to disconnect it and remove it from the game before doing anything else. To have the marquee light controlled by the game's power switch, you need to reroute how the power gets to the Partycade circuit board. The marquee kit does not include any instructions in the box. You need to download a PDF from thearcadegamefactory.com called How to Install the On-Off Control Panel Wiring Harness. You'll find it under the drop-down menu called Installation Instructions. This modification isn't hard, but don't attempt to do it without looking at the wiring diagram first, as you can damage your game if you make the wrong connections. The first step is to remove the power connection from the circuit board. Arcade1Up uses flexible glue to hold the JST plugs to the circuit board during shipping. The glue's easy to peel away using needle nose pliers. I then used the same pliers to wiggle the plug out of its socket. Next, I inserted the jumper plug from the kit into the power socket on the circuit board. The marquee kit includes a wiring harness that has several connections attached. The JST power plug that I removed from the circuit board connects to the female JST socket on the new harness. The remaining connections are made with barrel and pin power plugs, following the diagram shown here from the PDF. The splitter plugs into one end of the harness, and the Arcade1Up power supply plugs into the other. The 2 ends of the splitter connect to the marquee power and the CPU power plug. There's a notch cut into the deck bulkhead of the cabinet for the ribbon cable and the power cord to pass through on their way to the CPU. It's deep enough for the marquee power leg of the splitter to pass through as well. I then threaded the LED power cable behind the back panel support and plugged it into the splitter. At this point, I finished installing the new marquee. I replaced the top and side panels and all of their screws, but I left the back panel off while I conducted a full test. After reconnecting the power supply, I fired up the game while it was still laying on its side on my workbench. As advertised, the Marquee lit as it should, and the game powered up and played normally. Satisfied it was correct, I replaced the back panel and returned the machine to my arcade. The lit Marquee makes all the difference in the world on this small machine. It finally looks like it belongs with its full-sized cousins in my arcade, both with the game room lights on as well as with them off. And the printing on the Arcade Game Factory Marquee looks a lot better than some of the stock marquees I have. It produces deeper, richer colors and there's no washout. While this project may seem like a lot of work, it really wasn't. I needed a few simple hand tools and a drill with a 5/8" bit. I completed the installation in less than an hour. You can find this and other replacement marquees for Arcade1Up games at thearcadegamefactory.com. And for other easy Arcade1Up mod projects, subscribe to my YouTube channel, PoppArtStudios.